chickens, welcome to the very beginning of my altar tour. You will notice that you are looking at my altar under dead of night. There is no light in this room aside from the light that's coming from the various different bits and pieces, candles and lights that I've got here at my altar space. So I thought I'd begin like this because I love the way it looks when it's all lit up. I really love the way it looks without any light. So you can see my foot there in the mirror. So yeah, I thought I'd start by showing you what it looks like this. And then when the daylight comes, I will talk you guys through what everything is, and it's going to be a pretty lengthy tour, as you'll be able to see from the timestamp. I'm probably going to go through the drawers a little bit as well and talk you guys through why things look the way that they do. So there have been a few temporary changes to my altar for the time of Samhain and Halloween, getting festive, and I will definitely talk you through what those changes are tomorrow when I go into things more. This is just sort of a taste of what my altar space looks like at the moment, and then I'm going to get into going through all of the details when it's light, so you can really see all of the specifics of what is actually included here. I just posted an image of my altar all lit up on Instagram, letting you guys know that it wouldn't be long until I would be breaking all of this down for you on YouTube. So it's something I'm very happy to do, and I really hope that you enjoy this video, guys. Good morning, doll faces. You are looking at my battered meditation pillow down there and a couple of other little cushions that I tend to use at my altar. And it's daylight now, so I'm basically going to sit down and talk through a few of the things you can see here. Let me give you a little bit of an idea of the anatomy of my altar space and what things mean and what things are for, and hopefully this will be an enjoyable little tour for you. So just taking a look at my altar space from above, you can see that there is a sense of symmetry. It's not like everything is the exact same on both sides, but you can definitely see that there is a symmetry there. Now, somebody asked me on Instagram not long ago when I posted an image of my altar and announced that I was going to be doing a tour pretty soon, whether or not I feel compelled to include symmetry in my altar setup. And I would say compelled is a little bit too much of a strong word. I'm definitely not compelled to use symmetry. I could definitely create an altar space without the sense of symmetry that you see here, with the mirror that makes both sides kind of equal, and then the image of the Virgin Mary and the image of hell, and then, you know, it's just a similar vibe both sides. I could definitely create an altar space without that, but for me it just wouldn't feel as enjoyable, and I wouldn't feel like I clicked into it and locked into it as much aesthetically or in terms of how I use an altar space. And I do have a theory on this urge towards symmetry. I feel like it's got something to do with the way that a church is set up. I have mentioned a few times that I do think a lot of my influence in terms of how I want things to look, how I perform ritual, my style and brand of spirituality and magic, etc. I do take a great deal of influence from my Catholic family upbringing, and I feel like that's actually why I wanted this kind of mirror, you know, this sort of gallery mirror, and distinctly in a church door kind of shape as well, rather than a rounded shape. I feel like it's just got a church vibe, and that was very much where I cut my teeth when it comes to devotion and ritual and all that jazz. So that's kind of a theory for me of why I like things to be symmetrical or somewhat symmetrical. Again, it's not perfect symmetry, but it's symmetrical enough for this person on Instagram to be at least the 6th or 7th person, I think, who's asked that question about symmetry during the time I've been showing off my altar space. So yeah, I think that's why I like symmetry. I find it really pleasing. I'm assuming it's that because I don't necessarily need symmetry so much with like my clothing and things like that. Like, I can wear asymmetrical tops, I can wear colours that, you know, go on one side of a t-shirt or whatever, and it doesn't bother me. But when it comes to the altar, apparently I like symmetry. So this is the side of the altar that is always to my right hand as I'm sitting in front of it, and this is my portrait of the goddess Hell, which I collaged myself. I've been using this for a while now as my symbol of hell. As you can see, during the creative process, I decided not necessarily to make her precisely one half skeleton, one half living woman. I kind of mixed it up a little bit, but for me it's a really awesome portrait of her. It very much symbolises how I feel about her and how I feel about her role in my life. I've got some plastic bones there and flowers and stuff like that, my memento mori card, and then you kind of go into the hell space on the altar. So this is Hell's candle. I've had this for a while now and associate it with hell, and I like to light it when I do devotionals to her and that kind of jazz. I really, really love it. You can see it's got the skulls and the chains and whatnot, and then it's kind of like a skeletal hand holding a skull, so it's just a really cool candle, very moody and atmospheric. And then here you kind of move on into more of the hell stuff. So these are the prayer beads that I use for my devotionals to hell. Usually they were made by Joey Morris of Starry Eyed Supplies, and they sit in a bed of skulls, as you can see. My little skulls here. And then in front I've got the stones that are sacred to her, so black tourmaline, snowflake obsidian and obsidian. And I've also got here the Hagalaz rune, Hell's rune. I also consider jet to be sacred to hell as well, but I don't have any on the altar at the moment. But that's not to say that I don't at times place jet onto the altar for her as well. And then in front here I've got Hell's candle that I light for devotionals, and also just sometimes when I'm in contemplation or meditation at the altar. I've got a bunch of black candles underneath in my drawers so that I always have a black candle available when I'm running low. And then the crystal ball I've got here. Now last night you saw the crystal ball exposed when I showed you the altar at night time. I do like to keep it with a cloth over it, because I do see it as somewhat of an eye, a magical eye if you will, and I feel like it needs to be covered when I'm not working with it usually, although when the altar's all lit up at night time I don't think it harms it at all to have the crystal ball exposed, even if I'm not necessarily working with it, because it's beautiful. It reflects the light really nicely, so you know, I like to take it out at night and then have it sort of glinting in the light. It's really pretty. In this bag, which I've been using for a long time, I've had this featured on my altar space for a long time. I've got a couple of things that I like to keep in here. So I've got a protective eye in here that I use to bless and consecrate altar and tools and whatnot. And then I've also got a set of beads in here with a chaos star on them, and this is one of my most important sets of prayer beads that I work with. It's basically like an alternative rosary, and I've also got in here a little piece of clear quartz as well, and I always keep those things at the front in that bag for when I might need to use them at a moment's notice. I've got here another set of prayer beads. These are jade and aventurine. These are super beautiful. I really, really love these, and I use these probably more than any other set of prayer beads, I would say. These aren't necessarily associated with hell per se. These are more like general prayer beads that I use for different mantras and meditations and words of power and stuff like that. And then here I've got my jack-o'-lantern. I've got two jack-o'-lantern candle holders on either side, and this is just really to be festive. They're not normally there. In fact, I've normally got other candle holders, or one other candle holder that I made myself that's got a few icons on it that I work with, like Lee Miller, Ella Fitzgerald, Josephine Baker. Normally I've got that candle here on the altar. But because it's festive time, because it's seasonal, I like to put my little orange gold jack-o'-lantern candle holders there instead, and it just gets me in the mood. I love that. So I'm just holding my camera up to the mirror, and you can actually see my cup of tea in the background there on my little lavender tray. Okay, so basically this is the mirror that I use. I use this for reflection, meditation. I use it for mirror work. I find it's just a really beautiful ornamentation as well for the centre of the altar. I had a very strong vision of something like this for my altar, and I just really wanted to get my hands on one. So I ordered one online. There's no fancy story behind this. It's not vintage or anything, but it is exactly what I wanted. It gave me that church vibe that I really wanted. I love the fact that the glass is cut at the top here and at the sides as well. The glass is cut, which I really like, and I've got some fairy lights on there, and I've also got a number of other things. I've got this mask here. I've got some flowers, you know, I've just got some bits and pieces. Some of these bits and pieces are important. Some of them are just for ornamentation, like the mask and the butterfly and stuff. but other pieces are of real importance. Like here I've got a medal of the Virgin Mary that was sent to me by a client, a subscriber. I've got this absolutely beautiful pendant here of Hel, the goddess Hel, that was made for me by the artist Anatorian as a gift, and it's absolutely stupendous, and I've had it right in the centre of my altar ever since I received it. This is a really important rosary that was literally sent to me by the cosmos. I can't even explain to you how this little thing got to me, but I do explain it in my spiritual jewellery video. If anyone's got an interest in learning more about my spiritual jewellery, I'll link that video for you down below. I've got a few other rosaries here, lots of rosaries. I'm a real collector of rosaries. So here in the centre of the altar at the back, I've got quite a few things going on. I've got here a statue of the Blessed Virgin, and this is a rosary that was sent to me again by a client and subscriber. I absolutely love this rosary. This is definitely one of my favourites at the moment, really beautiful. And under here I've got here the prayer of Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal, and this card was sent to me alongside this medal here, and the prayer on the back I'm actually working with and customising at the moment. So it's a really beautiful prayer, the prayer of Our Lady of the Miraculous Medal. It's a really gorgeous prayer, and I'm kind of like customising it and playing with it. I really enjoy taking Catholic prayers that are written for the Virgin Mary, to petition to the Virgin Mary, and changing them up and doing my own thing with them and customising them and playing with them. It's one of my little witchy pastimes that I love. I've got here my portrait of Joan of Arc, which I have been working with for a very long time. She is an archetype that I work with and have done for a very long time. I've always had a very keen interest in Joan of Arc since being a teenager, and I love having her on my altar. I think my altar wouldn't feel complete without Joan of Arc right there, so really, really love working with her. This is my statuette of Hel. This is very, very new. This was sent to me by a member of my private safe house group, who is a really awesome tarot reader, and she just mentioned that she had it but wasn't really using it, and did I want it, and she sent it over to me. I'm absolutely in love. To be honest, guys, this is just beautiful. I couldn't be happier with this addition to my altar. I've wanted a Hel statuette for so long, and it's just finally come to me. Now this little guy, he's not normally on my altar space. I purchased him in a little bit of a sort of flurry of Samhain feeling, I must say, the other day. And I used him in my photos for my Skeleton Talk product that I've brought out for Samhain and Halloween. You can click below to learn more about Skeleton Talk. It's a collection of audio talks that I've done to basically help people tap into the deeper themes of the season. And I've actually used this light up skeleton guy in the photos for that. And you will have noticed last night when the altar was all lit up, I mean, you cannot miss him. He really is quite the feature, I would say. He's a bit of a showstopper, and I might keep him as a permanent thing. I've normally got my disco ball there. I've got a disco ball that I usually have on my altar, which has a special sentimental significance to me. But actually, I really love this guy. Maybe I might have both of them, and I think that the light from him, this iridescent, gorgeous light coming through here, will play really nicely with the disco ball. So I think after Samhain, I might actually reinstate the disco ball, but leave this handsome devil on the altar as well. This is my incense burner. This is some oil that is sacred to Hel, has lots of hellish bits and pieces in it. This is a nun statuette that was sent to me by a subscriber to my PO box. I absolutely love nuns. I don't know whether or not they knew that. It's a long time ago since I received this, so I can't remember exactly what was on the note to me, but I actually love nuns. I'm like obsessed with nuns. When I was younger, I was fascinated by these women who would just give up their whole earthly life to the worship of a celestial being, and go and live in quiet contemplation and grow their own veg and stuff. I just thought that was really interesting and inspiring. So I very much like images of nuns, so that's lived on my altar pretty much ever since I received it. And this is just my little incense burner. Now this is my athame. I absolutely am in love with this vintage athame. It's so gorgeous. Obviously it wasn't supposed to be an athame. It's actually a letter opener, a very pretty ornate letter opener, which I decided was going to be my athame just about as soon as I clapped eyes on it. So yeah, that's what's happening there. I've got here a prayer card that I picked up in Italy, an image of the Virgin and Child that was made by Victoria Moseley. This is one of her beautiful seasonal cards. Victoria Moseley is the artist behind the Vintage Wisdom Oracle, and actually Anna Torian, the artist who made this for me, she's the artist behind the Oracle of Echoes Oracle deck, and is also creating the Bonestone deck with Avalon Cameron. So I'm so lucky to have these beautiful things from these amazing artists that have created very, very important decks. This is a mixture of Witch's Holy Water that was made in the light of the full moon and rose water, and I really love this bottle. I've shown this to you guys before. This was picked up for me in Rome by my beautiful, thoughtful friend Siobhan, so I like to keep that on the altar all the time as well. And then here in the front you've got this green glass. I'm quite a collector of green glass. I've got quite a few bits of it. In fact, I've actually got another kind of like dresser piece of cut glass, like a cut glass plate that I was using before, but I've switched to this one because it's a little bit bigger. But I actually have quite a few green cut glass plates and green bottles and things like that. I just really love green glass, apparently. So this is the plate I'm working with at the moment, and basically I always like to have some kind of plate in the front of my altar, right at the very front in the centre, and that is to do my readings, it's to do my cauldron work, it's to do little bits of spellcraft, anything I might want to do. I can do pretty much on this plate. Now obviously larger spells and big rituals with lots of things I actually do down on the floor, and I have the altar all lit up like a Christmas tree at the same time. But the smaller bits and pieces like the daily drawers and the altar work, the cauldron work, sorry, I can do on a cut glass plate or a fireproof black plate. So that's what I tend to have at the front of my altar all the time. And again, that's another thing that just makes it feel right. It's like, yeah, there we go, I've got the plate on the front, now I'm ready to do something. So I've got my Mother Mary Oracle here, and I've got my Tarot of Bones. I can never remember if it's called the Tarot of Bones or Tarot of the Bones, but one or t'other anyway. And these are the two principal decks that I use to work with the Blessed Virgin and also the Goddess Hel. So inside this green bottle is rose water, which I work with very, very often. I normally dab some on my wrists or my neck or my forehead pretty much every single time I sit down at the altar. So I kind of perpetually smell a little bit of rose water on the days that I've done my work. This is the bell that I'm using at the moment. This actually wasn't on the altar last night when I showed you guys how it looked when it was lit up. Actually, I was cleaning it, so it was in my living room. But I do like a little bit of sound cleansing as just a quick way to settle into the work I've got to do and feel like I'm kind of locked into the act that I'm about to get into. So I really do like having a bell there. I actually like this one. I like the sound of this one and the feel of this one better than my other one, which is in one of the drawers below. I'll show you. But the other one looks better. The other one has that kind of like cut crystal glass vibe to it with a silver handle. Whereas this one is much plainer, but I really do like the sound. Over on this side of the altar though, I've also got my chimes, which I use for sound cleansing as well, and also for meditations and stuff, so I do use them too. And I've got a rosary here. This is one of the many rosaries that I own. I really like this one because I like the shiny silver JC, and also there's images of the Holy Child of Etcetera on these ones, and I really do like that. I do like the chunky wooden beads quite a bit. So I've got sort of phases that I go through with rosaries, and depending on which ones I like for the time will depend on which rosaries I have out and which ones are stored away, because like I said, I'm a little bit of a collector. This is my gratitude journal that I like to keep on the altar. I really do like to maintain a practice of gratitude as much as possible. I've got here another jack-o'-lantern, and this is the candle for the Blessed Virgin, much like the kind of the sort of scary skeleton candle on the other side for Hel. And then here I've got my image of the Blessed Virgin. I did not draw this image of Mary, but I did collage and put all of the words around and framed it in the pink and everything. And I've got a rosary there. I've also got this cute little sort of cheap looking princess tiara that I feel just really sets off this side of the altar. It's the kind of thing I would have had on a sort of shrine for Mary as a child, which I very, very, very often wanted to have, but there would be no way I'd be able to explain to my parents that I wanted a shrine to the Virgin Mary. I didn't feel like that was the kind of thing I could say to them, but I used to regularly sit in front of my nana's little sort of shrines and statuettes and stuff when I I was at her house, and I was in heaven, and I couldn't wait to have something like that for myself. So that's the kind of thing that would have gone on there when I was about 6, I think. So I really like working with Mary as Mary Queen of Heaven, so I like the idea of the tiara being there for that. So this is a really nice sort of like cut crystal glass bottle that I found in a charity shop. Now this is what is going to have rose water in it next time. So the last time I purchased rose water, I decanted it into my green bottle, and I'm using that up at the moment. But after that, I think I'm going to keep rose water in this smaller, much more subtle bottle. There's nothing in it at the moment. It has been consecrated, but there's nothing actually in it. I just keep it on the altar because I think it's fucking gorgeous. It's really pretty. And I've got here another statuette of the Virgin as well. I really, really love this one. I found this in a vintage store. And the necklace on it has sentimental value. And the glow stick is just one of the many glow sticks I've worn to raves. So down here I've got the stones, or 2 of the stones anyway, that I consider to be sacred to the Blessed Virgin. And that is the rose quartz and the pink tourmaline. I've got this medal here that I purchased years and years ago in Amsterdam that I sometimes like to wear around my neck, but at the moment I'm keeping it on the altar. And lastly but not leastly, I've got my cauldron here in the front. I really love working with my cauldron and having it on the altar all the time. I found this stand in a charity shop for like no money, and it's always had my cauldron standing on it. And underneath you've just got a couple of bottles of things I've been using in my oil burner or on my pulse points recently. I've got some blueberry oil and some orange oil, so that's basically it. And this cloth, I must say, actually has much more of a Yule vibe than Samhain. Originally I thought I was going to have a skull cloth because I've got a couple of them. I've also got a really just very gaudy Samhain looking orange and black cloth, which no doubt one of these cloths will go over on my tarot table, but for some reason I just couldn't get this very sort of clean Yule like white cloth with blue stars out of my mind. I just thought, no, I want that. I just really wanted my altar to look very clean and simple and kind of snowy. Maybe it doesn't look simple to many of you actually, but I feel like this white cloth sort of brings everything together nicely. Okay, so let's go through the drawers briefly. I'm not going to talk you through every single thing because as you can see, this is a proper working witch's altar. This is not just me witchy flexing for the gram. This is for real, bitches. So there's a lot of shit in here that I'm working with. I jest, of course, as I'm sure you understand. I'm just sort of tongue-in-cheek referencing all the aesthetics debate that's been going on lately, but indeed this is for real. So I'll talk you through a few things that you can see. Over on this side I've got a couple of like long containers with green lids, and they actually come from a sort of sweet, like a confectionery stand in my town, but I like to keep them whenever I go and get sweets from there and use them for different incenses or herbs or seeds or whatever I might be working with. Actually, one of those contains the rest of my eggshell protection mix that I bought from Joey Morris from Starry Eyed Supplies, and it is amazing. I used half of it in a working which went extremely well, so I'm keeping the other half for when I may need it in the future. So yeah, very powerful, that eggshell protection jazz. Get on that if you're looking for something that packs a very powerful punch. If you're wondering what that sound is, it's me pulling my tights up because as soon as I've finished this I've got to straighten myself up and go. I've got an appointment. Okay. So yeah, I've got some cloths here for when I do my rune work. I've got boxes here at the back. One of them's got my runes in, but I also do box magic. I like to use boxes in magic. I've got some bits and pieces here, some storm water that a subscriber sent to me that I really enjoy working with. I've got doll parts, doll legs, doll heads. You can rely on me to have lots of doll parts in my altar. I really like working with them. So I've got some shells here, I've got an enchanted sweet there, and I've got a few other things that were made for me by subscribers in here that are just so beautiful that I like to just have them close by. They're like super creative and gorgeous, these little kind of doll shrines and stuff. Really beautiful. My subscriber base, my audience are literally just so wonderfully creative and thoughtful, and I feel super blessed for that. So over here I've got tons of incense, stick incense blends. Really like using stick incense. In here I've got some herbs and seeds and things like that, so I've got different bits and pieces. This is actually a card, this is the strength card from the Bohemian Gothic Tarot, and this is something that Baba Studios sells. So in here I've got a few different things. I've got some dandelion leaf, I know I've got sunflower seeds in here somewhere, I've got strawberry leaf. Yeah, there's just a few different bits and pieces, things that I've been working with or I intend to work with. There's some lavender heads in here. Really like working with lavender heads for different things, relaxation, healing, release. So yeah, just a few bits and pieces, nothing major. This is a shot glass that has great sentimental value to me, and I sometimes like to take a shot out of that to celebrate something. So yeah, I like to keep that in there. I've got my charcoal discs in here, obviously for working with the cauldron. Not much use for incense if you don't have the discs, although sometimes I do, just obviously with my cauldron work, a lot of the time I just set fire to paper and then I put the paper in the cauldron, but the charcoal discs are really good for burning incense and stuff. There's quite a few things in here that have sentimental value that make their way onto the altar and off of the altar. This stone, for example, has massive sentimental value to me. This little alien has huge sentimental value to me. This was given to me by a guy on a train years and years ago when I was on my way back from a Korn concert in London. And he said, "Are you and your friend just walking back home on your own in the dark from the station?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That station's quite a long way from town." And I said, "Yeah, don't worry, we'll be fine." You know, I thought I was a double hard bitch. And he took this little alien out of his pocket and he said, "Take this little guy and he'll keep you safe." And I just thought, that is a super magical, random little thing to happen. So I've always kept my little karate alien guy. Yeah, so just lots of things that have sentimental value. And obviously there are lots of oils here, and there's some moon water here, and there's some, this is just a bottle that I use for spell remnants. There are tons of oils in here, they go all the way back. I really like using my oil burner for different things and putting blends together, so I always have a ready stack of oils. I also give massage to people and just put my healing intention and energy into that, so I also use the oils for that as well. If you guys are wondering what this little pink thing is off to the side, it's a little mini desk wheelie bin that I keep by the side of my altar for just like matches and stuff like that. Super useful. Okay, so the bottom drawer, that's just a wire for my alarm clock, guys. Bottom drawer. Oh, this is so full of stuff. So I'm not going to be explaining every single thing in here again, but just to give you an idea. So a few things that are in here that are of note that are worth mentioning. Over on this side I've got lots of dishes, lots of fireproof dishes, and dishes for incense and dishes for bigger spell work that I might do down on the floor. I've got obviously some spare tea lights there. I've got here some of my worry dolls. And my little mini pop pits that I make. I've made tons of them over time, and they're really useful for different things. They're all for different things. This is Dictamnus, aka Burning Bush. I've had this for quite a while now, and I feel very strongly that at some point I am going to need to use it for a spell, although I haven't used it so far. But it was lovingly bestowed upon me by an amazing witchy artistic woman. And here I've got, so basically this little sort of package originally contained some chakra healing stones that I purchased ages ago, but now I use it as a way to store some of my favourite rosaries that I like to keep near me on the altar. So these are all vintage rosaries, all 4 of them, and they are exceptionally beautiful. My favourite amongst them is this one, this gorgeous kind of faded turquoisey type colour. Amazing. I really love this one as well. So I just like to keep these tucked away, and then I can kind of rotate my rosaries depending upon what I'm feeling like, basically. Here I've got my haunted nun doll that some of you will have seen before. I absolutely love her, my Sister Bernadette nun doll. I've got a few nuns hanging around actually. I've got here this Nunzilla. that's got flint in her mouth, and when you wind her up she kind of marches along and shoots fire, which is always amusing. So right at the back here I've got a collection of fairy lights. I've got skull fairy lights and scary red skeleton hand fairy lights. I actually do have a real thing for fairy lights. I do just keep a lot of fairy lights around basically. I really like these blue butterfly ones at the moment that I like to sort of place around spell work that I'm doing down on the floor. It makes everything feel so much more exciting and just thrilling for me basically. And this is string for banishing work and poppet work, release work, cord cutting stuff, any of that kind of thing. Fusion magic. I've also got here the pipe cleaners to make more poppets and worry dolls and things like that. So as and when I need them, they are there. That's a brand new pack. I've just got random things in here like glow in the dark spiders and glow in the dark bats. I'm definitely going to need to put this little pickle on the altar soon enough. I think in fact actually I'll do that now. So I have him glowing up tonight. I know there are more in there. I'll have to get them out. Now this is my mirror for mirror work, as I mentioned in my rituals and spells video at the beginning of Self-Love September when I showed you guys my mirror. And then underneath there I've got fabric for making poppets and also for chalking out different maps or like rune maps and stuff like that. I've got my two main working poppets down here, just sort of chilling, waiting for me to need them. Organza bags, which doesn't have a shitload of organza bags, spare candle there. And then here I've got some tarot cards, random leftovers from old tarot card decks and stuff, which are great for magic, really good for magic. And then here I've just got some images that I sometimes like to place on the altar. I've got more work here from Victoria Mosley, whose work is just incredible. And I've got here a chaos star that was made for me by a subscriber that I really love, that sometimes goes on my altar. So yeah, there's quite a few things here from subscribers that have sort of made the cut insofar as me wanting to place them on my altar or have them around my altar. I feel like stuff that people send me is super sacred and I really love working with it. So I think that's really about all. As I said, I'm not going to mention every single thing. I've got some crow feathers down here and raven feathers. Very important for somebody who works with a death goddess, guys. Oh, blimey. Blimey, I've got a lot of stuff, fucking hell. Okay, so that's it, honeybees. I really hope that you enjoyed this tour of my altar space and enjoyed seeing what is included from last time and what's changed. I really love this particular setup. I'm going to have to be particularly careful of the cloth, as I think witches tend to feel when their working altar has quite a light, pristine or white kind of cloth. You've got to be really careful of those match ends and bits of jet black dust that come off the end and stuff, the ash and whatnot. So I'm going to be careful because I do like it looking like this, but no doubt it is going to get a little bit grubby. But no wax, no wax. I've got these amazing candle holders for the dinner candles now that were sent to me by Diana Ravenwood, and they are really beautiful. They do the job just fantastically, so I don't have to worry about wax anymore. Guys, it's been really a pleasure to take you around my altar. I hope this has given you some inspiration. If you have any questions for me about altar spaces, about my altar space, or about tips for your own altar spaces, please do leave them below, because I'm definitely going to do an altar related Q&A soon. I'm going to put the call out for questions on Instagram, but I'd also be interested in knowing underneath this video if you have any questions, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. So much love, darlings. Blessed be.